Alrighty, folks, we are going to talk housing. The housing market, real estate market has just had a gigantic hit with Hurricane Helene. We are still in recovery mode. We are still saving lives. We're still doing right. But one of the things we have to think about real estate is given that large swath of impact, what is going to happen to the real estate market? We do have some insight post September 2022 of Ian, which was the west coast of Florida and some cities. We are still seeing impact in 2024 from Hurricane Ian. So this impact from Helene is going to be long. But Lance, you've done some early reporting. I'm curious, what can we expect in the housing market, the real estate market, post hurricane?
Yeah, so I just sent this report out to my Resi Club readers, which a lot of your audience is. Pockets of the Southeast right now are reeling from this widespread devastation. Rescue crews are still out there working, and still 1 million people without power. 400,000 in South Carolina, over 300,000 in North Carolina. It's being felt in parts of Georgia, Florida, Virginia, West Virginia. According to CNN, sadly, Hurricane Helene's we already know that 189 people, and it's actually up to 191 now, died. That's the 5th deadliest hurricane since 1950. And, the sad thing is we don't have the final count yet.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, some of the reports I have read is comparing this with Katrina, about where the numbers may end up, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I have no clue, but I think just the fact that it's already the 5th deadliest hurricane, a lot of people affected. So once we kind of move past the human side, right, and the rescue crews and getting people power and all of that, eventually this is going to be felt on the property side for quite a while.
For sure.
And there's a lot of destruction there for commercial, for public grid, and then also residential. My view at Resi Club, and I posted this a while back, is that I think that we have more vulnerability right now to a local hurricane-induced price correction. Because really the thing is, in housing the past couple of years, there has been downward pressure on prices with affordability getting so bad. But home prices are sticky, right? And so if there isn't the supply, if the market stays in just enough balance, prices can be sticky and maybe even keep inching up just a little bit, right? Well, a hurricane, what happened in September 2022 is normally hurricanes don't cause prices to come down much. Often, even like Hurricane Harvey and stuff, year over year in Houston kept moving up. But in this current environment where affordability is so constrained, and if it hits into these pockets of the country that had a lot of second home buyers or a lot of pandemic migration coming in, right, and their home prices got even further out of whack with local fundamentals, then this is probably a headwind. And so September 2022, Hurricane Ian, which is the 3rd costliest hurricane in U.S. history. I don't know if that's in real or nominal, but it's high, according to the U.S. government. And so what occurred afterwards is that there was a cooling effect on Southwest Florida home markets, Cape Coral, Punta Gorda, parts of Naples, parts of Tampa, Sarasota, Northport, all of those. And what occurred is, and you could still go on to realtor.com and do a search for damaged homes or roofs, and you would still see a lot of listings pop up in Southwest Florida.
Crazy. 2 years later. Yep.
And so you just had a bit of an increase in damaged properties going onto the market, right? You had just enough of the work from home effect was already starting to come down, right? Mm-hmm. And then it was like, wow, this area, they're more hurricane prone. Now the insurance is going up a lot. I don't know if I'm going to make this move. So you had a deceleration, and actually some pockets of Southwest Florida saw net migration out.
Correct.
Lost population, according to John Burns. And so what you started to see is that, and here's where Hurricane Ian did its most damage. And what you will see is that's where the housing market cooled the most in Southwest And really the US the past year, it's been a lot of that Southwest Florida as, the insurance shocks have rolled through. There's a bit extra inventory from the hurricane. That work from home migration is cooled. And then their prices there were just kind of strained with local fundamentals.
Yeah.
So I can't exactly tell you what's going to happen to a T from this, but I think there's a vulnerability given just how stretched affordability has been and the fact we've been in this softening environment where active listings are kind of starting to rise, that you could pass through a bit of a correction there. Now,
Yeah.
on the other side, so a hurricane can increase insurance rates, right?
Hmm.
It can change migration patterns and it can put some damaged properties on the market, right? On the other side, uh, it often leads to a surge in construction activity, right?
Correct.
And a higher demand for subcontractor labor.
Hmm.
That's kind of how, the big picture from hurricanes that we know.
Yeah.
And and
What?
earlier this year, let me see if I can pull it up here.
Yeah.
Um,
Why are you pulling this up? There's really three things when I think about all hurricanes, and specifically Hurricane Helene. And again, these are all things I've read. So again, if you're in the market, let me know. But given where this hurricane really has impacted, it appears that a large percentage of homeowners did not did not have flood insurance.
mm,
And if you know anything about at least what I have seen in the horrific pictures, a lot of this is going to be classified as floods. So if you are a homeowner and you had a mortgage and you have flood damage and it's gone and you don't have flood insurance, what are your choices? You're just going to walk away.
Yeah, and the other thing there is that the insurance models, like when they pick this up, if they're realizing that some pockets of the country, maybe they weren't even hit by the hurricane, but they maybe fit the same profile, they're like, oh, maybe they're
Correct.
at higher risk for flood than we thought.
Hmm.
That could affect the models for the insurance. Here, now this map is outdated, but this is my story where I dug through the data back in March and was able to find that the hurricane really was one of the triggering effects for the cooling in Southwest Florida. Here's
Hmm.
your inventory, January 2023 to January 2024, really concentrated in that
Yeah.
hurricane. And then uh, here it is by metro level, Punta Gorda, Cape Coral, right at the top, Northport. Here's where I did the search on realtor.com for damaged properties.
Hmm.
Again, it's very strong correlation with it. And then on pricing, that was where prices in Florida at the time.
Yeah,
This
they
map is
cracked first. Yeah.
more. This map has changed, especially for condo, because there's a separate condo shock
Yeah.
market. It's also part of the story in Florida, but let's not get into that too much.
Right.
Uh, uh,
Now, the other thing that I think about Hurricane Helene, and again, it's the tragedy there is again, based on what I've seen online, is it looks like there's entire towns that are now gone. And when I think about a town, and more specifically, they're often built around one large employer. And I suspect, unfortunately, a lot of these employers, they might make the tough choice of rebuilding somewhere else. And then again, if you have all this damage, all these properties, all these losses, and the big employer leaves, that's a 1-2 punch that's hard to recover from. So I would watch employment, especially the little towns where they're predominantly one employer. There's gigantic risk of large price drops, I suspect.
yeah, let me pull up the active inventory just to take a peek at the county level to see what's kind of where things were there uh, before this hurricane hit. I haven't checked into this
No, it's funny.
yet.
I love the fact you have all this data. People just you're housing, housing, housing. That's what Lance is.
Actually, it was some of the tightest parts
Yeah, look at that. Yeah.
right there, that western western North Carolina.
Yeah, you should snapshot this and then look at it in March. I bet it's going to be
Yeah.
wildly different.
Yeah. Really, the pocket out there that has changed the most is this county, which is Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg,
Airbnb heaven. Yep.
Airbnb, yeah, happened. And look at it. They went from 450 active inventory in August 2021 now to 1,600. It's a lot of
Hmm.
these Airbnbs. And one of our connections on Twitter says that it's a lot of the Airbnbs where they haven't put the work in to making them
Hmm.
like top
Yeah.
notch.
Unique. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And but then you go around here and they're still down 50, 40% from pre. This is going to change.
Oh, it's got to change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know where I don't know? I don't know where Asheville is on this map. Is that the one that's just gone?
Well, it's the biggest, it's like city in that area, and
Okay.
let's see what county it's in. Okay,
Boom. Boom. I'm not even going to guess how to say that.
yeah, and I'm not great at pronouncing these. Okay, there it is.
Okay. So the left.
Is it this one? This one.
There it is. Yeah. All right. So we're
So 40% below pre-pandemic levels. That's going to change.
That's going to change. This is what's happening. And again, so I think when I think about the big picture of Hurricane Helene, the first thing I went to is flood insurance. Again, based on early reports I have read, a smaller number of homeowners have flood insurance just given they're so far away from the ocean. So that's going to be a problem. That's also going to mean mortgage lenders take losses because the asset that is collateralized against is less than the loan value. Then I think about employers in these small towns. Are they going to rebuild where they were? Are they going to go somewhere else? And then the last thing I think about is, to your other point, is this is going to start kind of a rebuild or remodel boom, right? A lot of the homes have some damage, maybe roofs, whatnot. And then the other thing I think about is there's lumber. I don't know if you're tracking lumber, but lumber currently before this was trading at something like less than 500 per thousand board feet. We have a lot of lumber mills shutting down with curtailments. If we have, I don't know, 15% of the country suddenly rebuilding, what does that do to lumber?
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be interesting. And nobody talks about it, but I'm pretty sure according to Fast Markets, the remodel business is a bigger absorbs more lumber than the
Mhm.
new construction market.
In total, yeah, it's just that much bigger, correct?
Yeah, which is kind of wild. Here's a look at prices. They've still been kind of moving up in that area. The
Yeah,
one main exception again is that one county where Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge and all that, which
yeah,
that just speaks to the power of like watching active listings.
yeah,
Like for you see that's the one that pops, and then you go over here and it's like, well, that's also the weaker one for the pricing.
exactly.
It'll be interesting to kind of see how this how this changes.
Yeah. And then the other point about Florida and migration, that's going to be a big one too, because my mind went to industry first. But you're absolutely right. We got to think about the population, right? There are people that probably grew up in those areas for generations that may just not want to live there anymore and may choose to go somewhere else. So a hurricane that this damaging, this much loss of life it's going to change a lot of things. And real estate's just one of those things that's going to change. I think you're right. I think we're going to see a lot more listings, a lot of damaged properties. I think mortgage industry is going to take some gigantic losses in that area. If people really don't have flood insurance, that's going to be a problem. So it's going to be something we have to watch.
Yeah, and final point is that Hurricane Ian also intensified the insurance shock, not just for areas that were hit, but also other areas in
Yeah,
Florida.
exactly the whole Gulf Coast. It's like, hey, this could happen to us. And if that's to your point, there's probably other geographic locations like that area that didn't get hit, but they're going to see insurance jump because it could happen.
Yeah, and generally speaking, this one is a huge wild card just for residential real estate in general. What's going to happen with insurance, the next decade, right? Because these risk models are getting changed, and so much is going into, these different inputs and assessing these different parts of the country. And then we have been working through the echo of the pandemic housing boom and the construction boom, where prices went up so much for, the cost of building and the cost of repair, and the insurance, that cost of replacement was never fed all the way into the insurance models, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of these state commissioners have fought it. Actually, I believe in North Carolina, that might have been one of the states where the insurance was asking for like 30 or 40% going into
Hmm.
this year.
Wow.
Uh,
Pretty
North Carolina
crazy. Well, while you
insurance.
look that up, I think we should always close with Resi Day. You're posting your first Resi Day in New York. Let's remind people what that is, what day it is, why they should join if they're on the East Coast.
Yeah, so November 8th, a Friday in New York City, I'm going to do an event in the Hell's Kitchen area called Resi Day. It's a gathering of a lot of the, brightest minds across the housing sector, single family landlords, you have some of the institutional players, home builders, mortgage folks, real estate agents, and it's really just to have a discussion about like where's the housing market headed from here? What can be done to improve housing affordability? What are the big things and areas of opportunity, right, across the sector? And then really one of my favorite parts of this is because I know so many people across the housing sector, including you, Zuber, and other great people, that it's like people who come to this, I think they're going to make a lot of connections that are kind of like out of their wheelhouse. And maybe over time, these will create opportunities. And
Yeah.
so I'm really hoping that, we can provide a lot of great information one day, and then also a lot of people get to meet each other and network.
Well, folks, I am planning actually to fly in Wednesday. I'm going to obviously take my daughter out to either lunch or dinner because she lives in New York. But maybe we could do a one rental at a time coffee break. If you're going to be in New York or Boston, and you want to come a day early, let me know. And if enough people reach out, I'll do a coffee, lunch, something, and just say hi to the ORAT fans. Lance, you're amazing. Housing, housing,
One
housing.
last thing. If they want to find details, the ticket's only $75. It's just Google Resi Day and you'll
There you
find it.
go. Resi Day. Lance, you're amazing. Thanks, buddy.